What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Restoration Rundown Podcast, the podcast that's dedicated to you, the restoration business owner. My name is Ben Riccardi from Ironclad Restoration Marketing, and I'm the author of the No BS Guide to Internet Marketing for Restoration Contractors. Now, the Restoration Rundown is your source for everything related to managing and owning your restoration business, from bringing on special guests and sharing success stories to taking deep dives with our team here at Ironclad Restoration Marketing into all of the online channels that you need to be tapping into to get visibility for your restoration business and get more leads from the internet. We've got you covered. So buckle up and get ready for the rundown. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Restoration Rundown, the podcast that gives you the inside track on everything going on in the restoration industry, the strategies, the stories, and most of all, the straight talk that you need to build a better business today. Today, I've got a really special episode lined up for everyone. I am joined by two guys who have made a massive impact on this industry, not just through their consulting work, but through how they challenge leaders in the restoration industry to grow personally and professionally. I'm talking about none other than Brandon Reece and Chris Nordyke, who are the hosts of the Head, Hearts, and Boost podcast, the co-founders of Floodlight Consulting Group, and now, new news that I'm dropping here, the leaders inside FP Property Restoration as they help build what they call a true legacy restoration company. These guys work with owners every single day on leadership, culture, systems, and all the real world stuff that will actually determine whether or not your company's built on sand or if it's built to last. So today, we're going to be digging in what it really takes to build a restoration business that isn't just profitable today, but one that can stand the test of time. A legacy business, something that matters. So whether you're driving to a job site right now, you're doing some paperwork, or you're just trying to sharpen your sword, you are in the right place. So let's jump in. Guys, welcome to the show. Chris and Brandon.
That was a heck of an intro, man.
I want to do it. I just want to make sure so it's good. You zoomed out enough to where your head still fit into the frame from that intro.
Class, man. Jeez, Louisa. That was great. Happy to be here, man.
How's it going, man?
We're not on short of things to do right now, but it's going well.
Yeah. It seems to be the scene right now. It's towards end of year, all the holidays coming up and everything. But listen, I'm pumped to have you guys here. But I want to start simple. For anybody that has not crossed paths with you guys, you seem to be everywhere. I think I've flown to like 7 or 8 different locations, just end up running into you guys. Can you just run me through the quick version of how you both ended up in this world of restoration, consulting with Floodlight, and now with FP Property Restoration?
Sure. Yeah. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. Well, so my background, small business entrepreneurship, sales, pretty much since I was 19 years old, selling Cutco knives. That to another B2B sales job with Cintas, selling uniforms and laundry and shop towels and whatever. And then on to owning a retail commercial business with a partner of mine, eventually becoming a State Farm agent, which was kind of really my entry point, you could say, into restoration, right? Getting to the other side of the table. A childhood friend of mine had bought a small, what really at the time was a carpet cleaning company that he started to do water damage repair and build back for a State Farm PSP program, brought me in as a sales quote consultant, although I had no idea what consulting was at the time. Right? I was like, yeah, I'm not busy. I'd left the insurance business, and he Facebooked me, and next thing I know, I'm meeting Brandon, and that's kicked off, what's approaching a 10, 12-year run together.
Yeah.
Wow. Congratulations.
It's been a hot minute for sure. Yeah, same. I mean, it was, kind of got introduced to the industry like most of us. I think just I didn't know anything about it. And then, through some quasi indirect relationships, you get introduced to this thing. And when I got into the business, honestly, I just loved the fact I was your average person that was the underdog. So on paper, I didn't deserve to be a manager of anything. But then I got handed like all this responsibility, and it was an opportunity like the industry has provided for a lot of people. Like, it awards your effort. And I fell in love with that, and we've been in it now since. In terms of when we made the adjustment and started, booting up Floodlight Consulting Group, that happened almost 5 years ago now. And so we've been on that consulting side in the industry for a little over 4.5, 5 years. And then, as you said, just recently we decided for good or bad, it was time to go back. And you know what's funny, man? It's like, I think at the end of the day, we had this message in the back of our head a little bit of, those who can't teach. And I was like, I can't live in that. Like, I got to know that we still have the juice and that we can do this for real right alongside our peers and partners in the industry. And so that was what drove us at the FP project and what kind of gets us to this current state now, doing both owning Floodlight and now being partners inside a full service restoration team again. So,
yeah, I mean, thank you. I appreciate that. So you guys have built Floodlight, 10 years ago, and we're on our 10th anniversary as well for Ironclad Restoration Marketing, my agency. You've built Floodlight, you've built the Head Hearts and Boots podcast, which is how we connected at first. Did you guys ever, I guess you kind of answered this a little bit, but did you ever imagine, like a few months ago or however long, a year ago, that you guys would be leading inside an operating company like FP?
Yeah,
what shifted for you to kind of get there besides like kind of just testing your mettle, like you mentioned?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we did. It was kind of like from the get-go, Brandon and I would periodically fantasize about owning restoration companies again. There was actually a brief period where we're big fans of One Tom Plumber, really interesting model, great team.
Yes. Yep.
And there was a point at which Brandon and I were exploring even setting up financing and getting our ducks in a row to own a One Tom franchise, potentially even develop a territory. And we just... timing didn't feel right, and we didn't end up pulling the trigger. But we're just entrepreneurs, kind of owners by nature.
Yeah.
Yep.
We knew eventually we were going to get back into that seat in some fashion. But we're really just focused on building, scaling, and building a great foundation for Floodlight until this opportunity came along. And it's just like, okay, well, we can't pass this up. This is it. So
yeah, and we're fortunate too in the sense that, because that was on our strategic radar, we wanted to make sure that when we launched Floodlight, that it wasn't to be self-employed. So right out of the gate, we had a vision for what is it going to take for us to create a company that can stand on its own, and that the internal team members and the consultants that exist under that banner, like they're recognized and respected on their own.
Yeah.
And so we've been, building towards that. Of course, just like with any business, you fail forward at times, and it, sometimes you win out of sheer luck. And we've certainly, participated in all the above. And so we're at a place where it's realistic for us to take on this other endeavor without sacrificing Floodlight and our baby here, for sure.
Yeah, and listen, your foundation makes a ton of sense for this natural progression into FP. I mean, and congratulations. You guys are now in, I'm imagining you're going to be visiting my home state a little bit more here down in Florida. I'd love to get together with you guys. The weather's a little nicer. I noticed you had a jacket on pre-show, and I wore a jacket to work today too, but it was like 65. It was just more of like a fashion
a little
choice.
chilly for you.
Yeah, you had.
Yeah, hey, listen, I'm waiting. I'm just watching for iguanas falling out of the sky at this point right now when we get these cold snaps. But we're back into the 80s for Thanksgiving. The natural, sweaty, short Thanksgiving that everybody tends to enjoy through history in the United States. So let's break it down a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about your roles with FP Property Restoration, and what does that look like for you guys day to day with all of the other things you have going on?
Yeah, for sure. Chris, I'll let you go first.
Yeah. So my title is Chief Sales Officer. I just think of that more macro as head of growth. And so I'm also acting as our interim sales manager at the moment. So I've come in and first order of things is working with our sales team across all of our locations, getting some additional kind of systems refined, expectations, switching gears in some respects, and then ultimately overseeing the long-term growth of the business. So we've been just really working on strategy alongside what we're doing at the frontline teams. A lot of it feels very native. Like in many ways, like Brandon said, I've been working with teams across the country on all this stuff in a consultant role, and giving workshops and teaching these things. And so it's really fun. Most of the time, it's fun. It's fun getting in here and saying, okay, what's present state? right? And how do we get things to where they need to be based on what we know how to do and what to do. But it's really just a matter of kind of honing in on the day-to-day behaviors that we're doing as a sales organization, right? It's no different than any other restoration company operating in this industry. It's like, okay, what are the leading activities that we're doing as a team? What's the quality of those leading activities? And I can tell you more about some of the tools we've recently deployed on that. And then also, who are we trying to serve? And how do we get ourselves in front and engage with the right clients? Because every company is a little bit different in terms of who they're optimized to serve, right? And every market's a little bit different. And so those are kind of just the three things that we're really hyper focused on at the moment.
I'm have the honor, I think is probably the best way to put it, to sit in that CEO seat. And I think what's really made that awesome is because of how much horsepower that we have inside the organization as a leadership team. So the reason that's feasible, right, is because all these other really important and critical operational leadership roles are taken up by some hitters, right? So we, for those that don't know, Wayne is a participant in this particular endeavor as well. And so he's obviously just a hands down one of the best operational leaders I've met, even with his not being native to the industry. He's super powerful. Steve is just a dude that you have to respect. Like, the guy's played the game at the highest level. And so again, like, we have all this operational horsepower. And so I have the opportunity to really sit more in a strategic seat and try to look out as far into the future for the company as possible. And that's just been super fun. Kind of a learning edge for me right now. Is turning a little bit in terms of my competency and my skill focus around making sure that we develop a true sales first organization. And that is kind of a different type of CEO or leader than I have had the opportunity to fill before. And so that's been really cool to be able to start stretching my legs and live more in that space as well. So I mean, obviously that's an oversimplification of everything that we're doing, but those are the key roles that we're, fundamentally sitting in right now.
Yeah, I'm sure if we spent the time to go through everything, we would be on here for it'd be like a marathon. We'd have to start taking phone calls for donations and stuff. And
that's right.
Somebody shipping in meals. Yeah. Would make it.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, Uber Eats, we're looking for sponsorships. If you're out there listening,
that's right. Yes, we are.
All of us are. So I know, listen, with Floodlight, you guys have been, moving a needle in a pretty big way for a lot of companies. Not only that, but just the wealth of information you guys share, between us speaking at similar events, between RIA, going to more of the regional events that you do with at the experience, and all of this sales and commercial stuff that you guys have been sharing and this knowledge that you've been giving away. How does that mindset, I'll call it the Floodlight mindset, right? Yeah. How does that mindset work and what you teach the owners, and how is that translating inside FP with their processes and their culture?
Oh man, that's a really rad question. Well, I think one thing I just want to highlight is that information is free, but people really leverage relationship for execution support is a fundamentally important message that we did come out right out of the gates as a brand and remained committed to. And that is why we do so much sharing of free information and providing intel, if you will. Well, that same spirit already existed in FP property restoration, and it just worked well with us as leaders because Steve, obviously many people haven't interacted with him personally, but if you ever have, what you'll learn right away is that right, wrong, or indifferent, the guy is willing to share what he's trying and what he's putting into place. And he's willing to be super transparent about what's working and what's not. And so from our perspective, to be partnered inside an organization like that, where we just get to continue living out the same values that we've had at Floodlight was really important because, let's face it, like as soon as you strap on a brand for yourself, some of that weird mindset sets in where people get a little bit defensive and fearful, and they start wondering, okay, what are you going to do with information and how will this apply to, other relationships? And at the end of the day, man, we get to do live what we've already been doing with teams across the nation. And so we're going to continue to lean into that. Information is free. Like, we're going to talk about what we're doing and why we're doing it. And we're going to be honest when it's a failure and when it's a win. And hopefully people will continue to leverage that inside their own businesses, just like we've always done at Floodlight, for sure.
Yeah, I think it is. It just gives us a chance to live out what we've been teaching, right?
Yeah,
and the bad and the ugly, and like there's no magic. There's no magic bullets. I think all of us who've been doing this for more than a minute, we realize that if you've owned a business, you just realize there are no magic bullets. It's all about execution and people, and we're experiencing in many ways probably the same challenges that any sizable restorer is dealing with in their own business and has been over the last couple of years. Like we feel and see and experience all the same challenges the rest of the industry is, and we're just doing our best to apply the principles that we've been teaching to try to address those things. You know
what's kind of interesting, Ben, is like kind of a byproduct that showed up right away that I think is interesting is I'm also getting a better appreciation for some of that air gap that I've allowed to build up between me as a consultant and the real life day-to-day of an operator. And so one of the interesting byproducts is, man, have we had a real legit reminder of how difficult it is to execute, even when you have the best information. And it's made me really convicted as a leader with Floodlight to just ensure that we understand that and we continue to iterate our partnership in such a way where we can still help those leaders and those owners make legitimate traction, but not lose sight of how real it feels to be handing a drowning person a baby sometimes in our relationship. And so, I think part of the byproduct for Floodlight and its client base is, man, this is just going to keep us on the ground and keep us grounded in terms of how we're trying to partner with people. So, I mean, it's just been a great experience from that perspective, even already as well.
Yeah, that's killer. That must be really rewarding too, for me and my digital marketing agency. Like every single one of these interviews we do here on the Restoration Rundown podcast, I have a takeaway and we can share it with the team. And at the end of the day, it's to optimize results for our customers, right? And we don't know. And there is no magic bullet. All we can do is put our best foot forward, know who we're working for, and try there. So Chris, you mentioned challenges, right? The regular challenges we're all dealing with in the day-to-day. I want to put you both on the spot a little bit more than I have been this entire beginning, but you guys want to share some wins or some challenges that might surprise people with this new role that are in it on a day-to-day?
Oh yeah, sure.
Oh geez. Well, it's funny. And I think Steve would be just as ready to talk about all this too, if he were here. But Brandon and I were in Baltimore for the RAA regional event here. Yeah. Gosh, it was just like a week ago, I guess. Yeah. And literally, it's last Wednesday. And we were walking down the city street and we were just reminiscing about, hey, like, even though we've worked with FP for the last 4+ years as consultants, there's pockets of issues and things that we've been finding that we were totally unawares of, or the magnitude of it or whatever. And we're troubleshooting these things. And it just made us think. It's like, okay, well, if this is true about us who, has a pretty strong working understanding of the business, the industry, and we've been working with this client closely for 4 years, and we're still getting some surprises. We're finding these now. How then should that affect how we're delivering service in our consulting? And how can we do an even better job of gaining visibility into the business and helping our clients? And one of the things that came out of that is, I think a lot of times as owners, and this is true of Brandon and I as well now, sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. Like we get in and we discover things with our clients, but there's some things that you just aren't aware of at a level where you don't even think to bring it up as a problem, right? Because it's just not on your radar. You're hyper-focused on all these other areas. And so that's been an interesting experience. I think on the sales side, what I'm discovering is that we still tend to have a primary orientation around more of a route sales model, more of that marketing frequency of touch kind of model. And so, and that's after, a fair bit of training and around this commercial methodology that we teach around pain solution selling. And I think in our industry, it's really more of a reflection of the industry as a whole. The industry as a whole still is pretty anchored in this touch frequency, have a route, see all 200 of your prospects every single month, make sure you're top of mind, you're the last one in.
It's a deep rut.
It's a deep rut. It's a deep rut.
Sure.
And I think too, a business of any size, there's a lot of legacy customers that we're in kind of an account management mode, to where I don't think it's a matter of laziness so much as we just get into a rhythm of doing things a certain way. And so we're in the process of really flipping that on its head, to be honest, and converting more into a hunter mentality and shifting what our weekly activity looks like as a team to really hunting and turning over rocks and looking for opportunities. And Mike Schultz is on our team. He came from BMS Cat, has a lot of experience at a regional, national level, guiding teams and equipping teams. And he talks a lot about progression.
Not at FP, by the way, for the sake of clarity.
No. Yeah, he's part of our Floodlight team. Yeah. So he's been working with us internally at Floodlight to sort of refine our commercial sales approach, and we're applying as much of that as we can in the FP thing. But it's all about progression and thinking about these companies as to where are we at with them, and what's the next right move for us to dig deeper. And if they're a brand new prospect, right, get closer to that first notice of loss. If we've already done some work for them, what's our account penetration, right? Like we've serviced this one hotel, but how many hotels are there in the group, right? And just being more and more strategic in our sales activity versus routine
or reactive,
right?
Yeah. I think similar on the ops side, there's this a reminder, right, where you witness some holes or some friction points in the company, and it's just a stark reminder of how easy it is for these things to exist in our businesses. Even when you see successful companies, there's still all this opportunity for consistency improvement when you dig into the details. And so, like, a working example for us is, it's amazing how little data and the accuracy of our data that we can have inside our companies for a long period of time and be winning in a lot of categories. And so one of the things that we've just seen as we've, kind of integrated into the partnership more is more clarity in terms of opportunities around what are we measuring and why are we measuring that thing. And again, I'm not saying that like an epiphany. I'm just saying it's a good reminder, because even companies that think they have a bit of a grip on their data right now, if you really slow down and ask yourself the question why you don't have consistency in certain types of behavior, or why you don't have consistency in certain types of service level, I think there's many cases where you can route that back to unclear data or standards. And it's because of that it makes it difficult to manage proactively. So you're in this constant state of reaction. And so we're just fundamentally digging in really hard. Like, we don't want to take any of that going into 2026. We want to make sure that we're clear on our data. We understand why we're measuring what we're measuring, and that it's directly attached to the initiatives that we know fundamentally change the company for the better as we continue to grow and scale. All that really easy to say, much more difficult to manage and lean into. And that's just part of that reminder we have to tell ourselves, one step at a time, remain convicted, remain focused on 2 or 3 items at once, no more, and just continue to prod forward one day at a time, and you will see the net result from that effort. But man, here's just real quick story, okay? This is how easy it is. These are all veterans in this roster, okay? And it is so easy for us to get emotionally wrapped up just like anybody else. And so, like, we fundamentally as a team, for example, understand that we have 3 issues inside the business that we have to aggressively work on. One is lead type, what's the term I'm looking for? Diversity. Okay.
Sure.
Lead type diversity. Okay. Managing the work that comes in the door really, really well, and maximizing every single opportunity that we get access to. Okay. Yeah. Closing conversion rate. It's the fundamental KPIs. I did not say anything that should be new to anybody. However, working example, you know how easy it is for us as leaders that know what we should be focused on, know why we're focused on it, and understand the long-term result of that effort can still have a day where some bad news comes through the system and we act like all of a sudden that day we don't know what problem we're trying to fucking solve. Yeah. And we start spinning around and acting batshit crazy. And at the end of the day, as soon as everybody slows down, takes a breath and goes, you know what? We're just dealing with an issue that is a byproduct of the root cause we already know we're working on. So calm down, stay focused, keep moving forward one day at a time, and the problem will get solved by our consistency and our level of effort. And so it's just a good reminder, man. It's like, it doesn't matter how long you've been at it. It's easy to get to succumb to that and get wiped out or distracted or taken out of pocket. And so it's just good for all of us to remind each other of,
Yeah, what a good opportunity for you guys. But I'm thinking more about your Floodlight customers and clients, and what a great opportunity for you guys to fill those gaps, really get your feet on the ground, get the boots, get your hands dirty, and kind of really get into it. Because at the end of the day, what I do with digital marketing, I have the opportunity to help my construction business as well. So we get a really good chance to zoom in a little bit more and try to just optimize these things. We're really, again, you mentioned the knee-jerk reaction stuff. Like we're all guilty of it. As much as I can sit here and if something comes in an email and I'm on the phone, I'm like, shut up, I got to look at this real quick. And then you get all bent out of shape. And but that's the point of building the culture, right? Everything you guys are doing with HHB, with Floodlight, and now with FP is gearing towards building something that's going to be a legacy, right? You guys just spoke in Baltimore, I guess it was, specifically as that, building a legacy business. So it looks like you guys get a good chance to do that from the inside. So speaking about legacy, I want to zoom out a little bit, and I want to talk about, what does that mean in our industry? Can you guys just give me a quick definition of what building a legacy business means to you?
Yeah, I'm curious to hear what you'd say.
Well, so to add a little bit more color to the event last week, it was a panel of father-son, father-daughter businesses. Ben and Holden from Southeast Restoration. We had Tom and Alexis Neidart from Thomasville. We had Rhett and Nate Judy from Tobin Restoration in East Idaho. Yep. And we had Charlie and Justin Woodard from Woodard Restoration. So just an absolutely iconic business panel. And so that was sort of the basis for it. And Brandon and I, we were just talking heads. We just asked some good questions. They were all
the magic.
They were the magic. But so coming off of that, I think what I was so, I guess, impressed by and so admired was the relationship between parent and child. And there was a lot of narrative around giving them visibility into the business from a very young age, bringing them along, right? And folding them in to the business activities and going to the office on Sunday afternoons. Like Holden Looper talked a lot about, we had him on a podcast and it came up some during the panel of just basically Holden would tag along with dad all the time. It was just part of their life. And none of the business was hidden from him. And it was just very transparent. Tom talked about over the years having coffee dates with his daughter Alexis. And so there was just many, many examples of the value of just time and grade in terms of putting their children in a position to eventually lead the business in whatever capacity. And the panel was diverse. We have some that they've already taken over leadership, the kids have. In others where they're taking on key leadership roles in preparation for owning the business at some point. But that really stuck out to me, that there was an intentionality behind these founders in terms of incorporating their children into the experience so that someday they would have a real grasp and understanding of what's happening here to be able to then take the baton and run with it.
Yeah, I think that translates, right? Even in scenarios like most of us where we don't have a second generation that's going to come in. I think that characteristic, though, in terms of going back to a legacy business, is that proactive planning. Like who is the future leadership inside this organization and creating a path for succession planning and development, and I think what sometimes can be a little easier is when you have a multi-generational business, the family is thinking about it because it's their kids. And I think we have an opportunity to think about it the same way, but just understanding it's not a second generation, but it's just someone in my ranks or someone I haven't recruited yet that would come in and be that person. I think for me, and I'm not saying that it requires this to create a successful business. I think there's a lot of successful businesses in terms of financial metric that exist and they don't focus on this, but for me, like at the end of the day, Ben, I am conscientious of the fact of who's going to be surrounding me my last day on earth.
Yes, sir. Yep.
And I don't believe that making millions and millions of dollars and then selling something and walking away will necessarily have a positive impact on who it is I'll be surrounded by at the end of my journey. I think the way we manage relationships, the accountability that we create, the way that we change and modify our behavior over time and how we interact with people, I think that's the pathway that creates something where you have such meaningful impact on relationships that those people respect you and honor you to a certain extent, and they're likely to show up at the end of your journey to be respectful and to be a part of that transition with you. And so I know that's kind of dramatic, right, and storybooky, but if I can lead a company, if we can hold each other accountable to certain types of behaviors and consistency and commitments, that it gives me a stronger chance of giving my time and energy to something that builds that way. Yeah. And I can be surrounded by people I've had a positive impact on at the end of my days. That's going to be a journey that, to me, I feel like I'm going to hear, well done.
Yeah. And I would just say, within FP, one of the things that we sort of kicked into high gear, it was sort of an agreed upon principle already, but we really have poured gasoline on this idea of promoting from within. And so as we've identified, even just in the last several weeks, critical roles that we need to be hiring for and backfilling for and so forth, we've put in place a really aggressive recruit from within kind of process within our HR team. And one of the outcomes of that is we were hiring for a sales position, and we had a mitigation technician that was really interested in moving into sales. And to be perfectly honest, historically, that would not have been my go-to move. I would have been really hesitant about bringing somebody in from a sort of a frontline EMS role. But just because of this system was put in place, this person got in front of us, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is a really great opportunity for this person. And there is a really great fit here. And we're about 2 weeks into that. And it's awesome. It's an incredible feeling, because I may not have singled that person out just based on the title that they were carrying for that opportunity. And yet I'm now watching this person blossom and just be excited and also effective in this new sales role. And it's like, man, it's like, to me, it's super gratifying to see people kind of expand and grow right in front of your eyes. And so I'm excited to see, as we continue to, push on that, what kinds of development, we're going to see across our team. And I think too, this person, I mean, I'm not, I can't read their mind. Well, they've told me as much. They're like, man, I so appreciate this opportunity.
You talking Taylor?
Yeah, I'm talking about Taylor.
Yeah, it's PM.
Yeah.
Shout out Taylor.
Yeah.
Shout out.
Get him, bro.
And so it's just really fun. And I'm anticipating lots more stories like that coming out of FP. It's really cool.
Yeah, I think so too. It's meaningful.
Yeah, I think, Brandon, I don't think that was dramatic at all. I think that is 100% the catalyst, is what is going to build a legacy business, is that philosophy, right? And I think it's really cool that you guys get to see this proof of concept with that. And I'm also a firm believer of recruiting within. I think it lends to building that philosophy and building a culture in a company. And when people are buying into the culture, one of the things that I enjoyed about learning about like the One Tom franchise, for instance, is that, there's like a non-starter. This is who we are. This is what we do. And when you fall into that gap, I mean, I just think you open up, I'm more of a believer in hiring the person, right? A lot of people, they're hiring the person versus the skill. And I think that anybody can be taught anything. I'm a testament to that. I've before 2015, I had zero experience in digital marketing. And we built a really strong agency here 10 years later, and we're growing stronger. I mean, we've got a lot of growth coming to 26. So I love that. I love that philosophy. I love that for you guys, that you get to see that in action. So if the legacy of a business here starts with philosophy, right? And it's going to be held together by people, right? In most cases now, unless AI ends up taking over and Skynet becomes the new thing. Let's talk a little bit about the leadership and culture there.
Yeah.
Are there any specific like leadership traits that you guys are consistently seeing in the owners, and not just with FP, but just in all of the other businesses that you work with that help them build a durable company that'll stand the test of time?
Yeah, I think there's definitely markers, right? And then there's a big commitment to iterate around what will it require. So in full transparency, and that's a commitment we've made. I would say if I audited the current state of our organization, I would say that we have a ton of commitment to learn and iterate. But I wouldn't say that those leadership competencies are in play yet. I think we're still developing them if we're honest about it. And so like, what does that look like? I think there's a commitment to scenarios like this. It's easy to say we are going to recruit from within, but then it's easy in the same paragraph or same breath to be disgruntled because the team doesn't have the skill set to fill the next role that they would like to fill. Mm-hmm. And so what you learn very quickly is these things that we want to happen inside our company actually put an immense amount of pressure, weight, and responsibility on leaders to create clarity and a path for those employees to be able to step into those updated scenarios or opportunities. And dude, to be honest, and this is not, I'm not bashing on anybody, I'm recognizing it's hard. It's hard to run your business and be committed to doing that kind of heavy lift, to be in alignment with the philosophy or the strategy or vision that you have for your business. And so it's not an easy task. But I would say what I've seen in spades inside FP in its current state is conviction and commitment. Yeah. So we've got all the want, and now it's our job to begin putting into place the actual tangible things, clarity, pathways for our teams to lean in and make sure that that can become real inside the organization. And so I think there's that. I think you have to recognize the level of work that it requires to actually do the things that sound good to say on a podcast. And then you have to be committed and disciplined enough to stay on the path. Because in the first 90 days of almost every single initiative I think I've ever tried to put into place, it feels great for the first 3 weeks, and then it feels like hell for the next 8 to 12 weeks. And most of the time you never make it past that point to actually see the fruits of that effort in your business. Yeah. And so I think at the end of the day, I'm oversimplifying again, but you have to be convicted enough to stay the course through the shitty part so that you can see the fruit of your effort, because it is not easy.
It's resiliency, right? It's at the end of the day, it's the difference between going grocery shopping in a garbage can versus going grocery shopping at Whole Foods, right? If you don't have that culture built and you're not willing to do that work, which is hard, I'm guilty as anybody that's listening or you guys have ever dealt with about holding myself accountable and holding my leadership accountable for the way we're going to go, because at the end of the day, things happen. You get things pop up, an email pops up, and again, all it takes is one phone call sometimes to rock your world. And you need to have that conviction and the resiliency to stand the test of time, because you're right, that 6-week window or 60-day window, it's easy when you're pumped and you're excited. We went and saw you guys at a conference, man. All the different initiatives you guys are trying to do, we go in there and then like 3 weeks in, and then you start, falling off a little bit, and then there goes your teams and everything just goes right back to normal.
That's right.
I was just going to add one more thing that I've been feeling conviction about, and really too, even more so on the heels of that legacy panel this last week. More and more, man, I feel like one of the critical behaviors or leadership competencies, and I think it's almost more of like an internal condition that we have to develop over time, is level-headedness and a sense of calm. I think one of the things that our people need absolutely most from us, it's like, yes, do we need commitment? Well, 100%. Yes. Do we need a sense of urgency inside our company? 100%. And I think as leaders, like one of the best things we can do is provide this kind of feeling of safety and stability, even in the midst of all the crazy stuff that we as company owners are dealing with at any given time, at every size of the business. You always have fires you're fighting. But I look at people like Ben Looper and I think of like Rhett at Tobin, and just the demeanor and the self-control that these guys exemplify in terms of, and I would just say as raw as like controlling one's anger.
Yeah.
We were just talking about how something blows up and it's like, and it knocks us off balance. And I think really our people need us as key leaders to be stable, to be calm in the face of adversity, right? To not non-reactive, right? Like they're looking to us like, okay, this shit's happening. What should we do next? And they look to the leader, and the leader's calm. It exudes confidence. So it's like, that's just a character trait that I've been seeing in some of the leaders that we most admire. We've been really fortunate, like you have, to have many really incredible leaders on our podcast. And we've had clients, many of whom are really incredible leaders and gifted. And that's one of those common themes that I'm really trying to lean into this year is that. And I think the other thing that comes with that sense of calm and stability is reliability. This is, for me, has been a personal journey. I came up as really a sales business owner. I'm the talker guy, and I'm not by nature or my nurturing a super detail oriented, reliable, consistent kind of person. And as my leadership has grown, I'm just seeing more and more every single day. It's like, okay, I can say something really great, but if I can't be relied on to consistently show up in a particular way, I'm never going to have the leadership influence that I want to have.
Yeah.
Right. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs fall into that trap where they just think their charisma, their power, their drive and ambition is enough. And I don't think it is. Not if you want to play it at the really high level, like some of those people we talked about in our industry. It's like, no, you've got to master the art of self-control and providing that stability to your business.
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, isn't it true with everything in life, fatherhood, relationships, your marriage, your personal relationships with friends, what you guys are doing together, it takes that. You have to be able to be disciplined. And I'm fortunate enough to have some people around me that are like that. I'm hot-headed. I'm quick to fly off a handle in good and bad ways, right? I think it's just as dangerous to be overexcited about something and move in a direction. I mean, I'm like the Kool-Aid man. I get a good idea and I'm running through the wall and I'm like, here I am. And you kind of look and like, oh shit, I just ran into the wrong building. And when problems do arise, it's nice to have that. It's like, sailors on a ship, when a storm comes, who's the one that's going to be, hey, steady down. We're good. Batten down the hatches. We're going to be good. We're going to get through this. It's nothing. I see what's going to come on the horizon. And a lot of that, guys, it's, we can't, and if there's leaders out there beating themselves up, like I'm kind of doing mentally here, just working this through, a lot of this stuff takes experience. You go through these things, right? And if you could just be conscious of the necessity of you being that calming force, then you understand that, you're going to come out on the other side of most situations. So no, I really appreciate that insight into everything that you guys are dealing with like there. And it sounds like, culture being everything. I know that we talked about a little bit, it was tough. It's tough for leaders to actually do instead of just talk about it, right? Walk the walk. For the guys out there that are kind of thinking like, how the hell am I going to fit more time into doing whatever the heck I'm doing? Is there anything that you guys can offer up as advice to try to maybe avoid some burnout in leadership so they can stay consistent?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting place, I think, for Chris and I, because I do believe we have a lot of synergy in areas where we parallel each other. And then I think there's others where, Chris has found certain ways to do that successfully in his lifestyle, and I have, and they don't look exactly the same. I think one thing, though, that I've tried to buy into, because I'm super self-critical, like I don't think too many business owners aren't, but super self-critical. I'm absolutely my own worst enemy. I battle with fatigue from imposter syndrome. Like when you stay in that state for long periods of time where you feel like you're talking yourself in and out of it based on what's happening around you, it's exhausting. And I can live there more times than I'd like to admit. Anyway, so what that's drove me to be more committed to is allowing myself to be a work in process. And so I can always find something I'm sucking at. I can always find something I'm trying to beat myself over the head around. But there's a difference between critiquing your performance in a positive work in process way versus the buying into the you suck, you're garbage at this, everybody else is so much better. And so my encouragement for a lot of us is the way you don't burn out is by giving yourself the freedom to grow at the pace you're growing at.
Yeah.
And I'm not Alex Hormozy. I'm not going to be Alex Hormozy, and I'm not going to identify my ability to find success against that, example as for me in my life, right? So giving yourself grace. We are a work in process, and failing forward is failing forward. Like that is reality most of the time. And give yourself grace to experience that. I think the other thing is we have to get really comfortable being uncomfortable if we are actually making progress as an individual. And FP is absolutely an example of where I said, I have to be comfortable being uncomfortable, meaning I will be leading at the outer edge of my known skill set and capacity at FP for a long while. And if we do our job well, I will constantly be in that case because it means the company's growing and scaling to the point where I'm now still beyond my current skill set because the business looks different than it did yesterday.
Yeah.
And so if you can't get comfortable being uncomfortable and consistently living in the outer edges of your current skill set, you're never going to push yourself to the capabilities that you have. And so I think you just have to hold on to those two things simultaneously. It's an and statement. It's not either or. Mm-hmm. I'm comfortable being uncomfortable because I'm always at my outer edge. And at the same time, I'm failing forward, and I give myself grace to do so. And if I can do that consistently, I'll be all right. As soon as I get one of those off track, I begin to feel unwarranted pressure and I burn out. And most of it's a mental game than an actual activity or time management game for me personally.
Yeah, I mean, I could sort of say ditto to all of that in my own way. I think because I'm in that season right now where I'm feeling there's periodic feelings of overwhelm. I'm trying to be excellent at being one of the owners of Floodlight, right, and continuing to steward, right, our relationship Floodlight, and at the same time dedicate extreme focus to FP and what FP needs, and so it feels overwhelming sometimes to be able to step back and really focus on what am I prioritizing. Like you said, like most owners, I think, live in some state of overwhelm, whether they would describe it that way or not. It's not cool to say that, right? But so I think for me, one of the things that is a really strong anchor for me is I am really careful to protect my morning time. It's usually when I'm home and I'm not traveling. It's usually with my wife. It's with my phone sitting on the kitchen counter about 9 feet away from us on the living room couch. And it's that time where things come to me, sometimes even in conversation with my wife. And it just gives me this pause break in my day where I don't immediately drop in to work. And that's one of those things. It's hard for me to articulate why that is so important. I'm just saying it's become incredibly important for me. Those days where I leap right into work often are the ones that feel frenetic, chaotic, and I'm reacting
all day.
Yeah, and when I'm able to sort of protect that ritual of I get up, I grind my coffee, put the coffee in my Mocha Master. I make the pot of coffee. My wife gets up 15, 20 minutes after I do. We sit on the couch, right? Then I get up and I make some eggs. Then I take my shower and then I go. That 35, 45 minute process helps me remember who I am. And it also allows me to sort of process thoughts and things coming up for the day in this really loose kind of environment where I can think about these things that I have ahead, but I'm also not reacting yet to the stuff that's on my phone. I think for me, maybe this whole thing hinges on me having the phone on the kitchen counter and not in my hand during that time. But anyway, so that's just a thing that I've noticed here.
And I think that's important. It's something I've been focusing on, with my faith. And one of the things that I'm learning a lot in that vein is taking that time to ground and taking that time to go back to what Brandon was talking about earlier. Who's going to be around you when you're on your deathbed, right? What legacy are you leaving as a man, right? What have you done? The relationships you've built, the businesses. Listen, money comes and goes. Businesses come and go. Hopefully they don't, but they do. That's just the reality of the world we live in. So I think that's super important. Protect that time, have time in your quiet place, have that time where you're spending with your wife or your son or your daughter or whoever it may be, and set the tone for the day. If you really want to be that calming, present, strong force in your business, then it starts at home, which is the most important place for you to have those systems in place, right? That we talk about all the time, and implementing systems and structure. So I really appreciate you guys opening up a little bit, and talking about that, because I think a lot of leaders, we all burn out, right? I suffer from imposter syndrome, very much like everything. I mean, I'm in my own head quite a bit, and I have my own ways of grounding myself. I know Wayne would appreciate this. Jiu-jitsu has been a huge thing like that in my life. However, I'm on the sidelines with an injury, but it's really been one of those things. Was kind of cool that, the genesis of this thought, from my Christianity to jiu-jitsu and to the business ownership, all boils down to that same thing. It's like protecting that peace that that you can create, right? And it's just a matter of given time, right? The author I like says, if the devil can't make you bad, he makes you busy. And that takes away from everything that you're doing. So I want to get a little practical, right? We've cried, we've shared stories, we've been hugging virtually with each other. At the end of the day, people are the heart of these businesses, right? These legacy businesses that we create. And I do want to make one note. I thought it was pretty interesting, the panel that you mentioned and naming. I know the Tobin guys are great guys. I've met them, had a chance to talk to them a few times, but it is an outlier, right? A little bit, to have a business that you're handing down to your family. And I don't know if this is still true, but a couple of years ago, I interviewed a restoration business broker that said it's greater than like 87% of businesses don't get handed down despite your intention. So I think that's awesome. So that just lends to the power team you guys had up there at the RIA. And I think where the shift in our mindsets as business owners is kind of heading to, because I think everybody, myself included, 10 years ago, I'm like, one of these days, and I'm bouncing my son on the table, learning how to build websites. I'm like, one of those days is going to be yours, get ready. And I think that it was kind of cool to hear that, but it's even more refreshing to hear that, there are some outliers out there, and it just takes that switch of mindset and having that steady, calm presence there. So I want to get a little more practical, talk a little bit about systems. I talk ad nauseum about this. It's something that, again, it should be the backbone of your business. I want to talk real briefly on a couple based off, whether it's Floodlight or with what you're dealing with in the trenches right now. What are some negotiable systems that legacy level companies share? Those companies that are going to be built to last, like the ATIs and the Tobin guys. Yeah.
Well, I think two for me. One is a radical commitment to clarity for what winning looks like at each role. And again, we have to be consistent in not selling window dressing when we talk about our own operation. We're a work in process there. Right. And that's the conviction that we have as a company, is we want to have very little lack of clarity going into 2026, because we just know fundamentally the more you allow of gray in your business, the less successful your teams are and the more infuriating you are as an owner or a leader. And so we just have a real big commitment. And so again, keeping it practical, like what do some of those things look like? PMs should have a scorecard, and that scorecard should be based on what is the core metric that when you measure that individual's contribution and performance, it puts the client in the strongest position to have a great experience. And it allows you as a company to invoice and collect for the work that you did, right? So what are those things, right? It could be some rev goals, could be some gross profit margins, could be cycle times. Identify for them what winning looks like, and make sure that you put that scorecard in front of them on a consistent basis so they know why you're coaching them up or coaching them out, and they're asking for help and support because they understand what it looks like. You're speaking the same language. Yeah. I think the other thing that us as a team, again, we're developing this pattern of behavior. Steve was a one-man show for 14 years. Is we have to approach our leadership in terms of the initiatives that we're focused on. We have to keep them finite. We can't do everything all at once. And we have to keep those initiatives and the progress that we're making in front of us all the time. So, companies like EOS, companies like, Scaling Up, whatever, we adopt some version, a hybrid version. We call it Propel Your Business. It's what we leverage at Floodlight. We leverage that inside FP, and we're learning that cadence as a leadership team. Let's stay on these 2-3 things at a time and let's report on how we're progressing on those initiatives week in and week out. And if we can do those two things, we could be failing in a lot of categories in the business, and there's a strong chance we're moving forward.
Yeah.
I'm really convicted on those two things right now.
On the sales side of the business, I want to piggyback on something you just said in terms of it's so easy, especially with sales leaders, because by nature, we tend to be more impulsive and charismatic and opportunity chasers, right? And so narrowing the field of focus, I think, is a critical path skill and system. Right? It's a system unto its own, right?
Sure.
That really successful companies deploy. And I want to give you a quick example because, this is probably 6 months ago. I was taught. I'm not going to say which company, but a large successful company in our industry was talking with them about doing some sales consulting. They're really trying to grow in their commercial sales, largely a residential company at the moment. And we got about 3/4 of the way through the sales process. And I thought, oh, this is awesome. They're going to come on with us and we're going to really help them build out this thing. And it was very interesting. The CEO came back to me. He said, you know what, Chris, we're going to hit pause. I really love everything that we're talking about. Absolutely hope to work with you guys in the future. And we already have a target focus of this one customer segment that we've already rolled out to the team. And until we get really good at executing on that, we just feel like we'd be adding confusion and diffusing their energy and their focus. If we all of a sudden started going after, in this case, we were talking about expanding to senior living and hotels.
Okay.
And they already had some sort of first to market focuses in commercial that they were already working on. And I just thought, man, that is so mature.
Yeah.
And such great leadership behavior. It was, frankly, the way I'm wired, it was a moment of self-reflection where I thought, you know what, I probably have a tendency to fire on too many targets at once, even in my own work with clients. And so that was a real revelation for me of, gosh, that is such a critical leadership behavior. And it's so easy as owners to be like, sales, yeah, all of it. We'll take all of it.
Sure.
And that's not great leadership. And I think ultimately we don't get the same results. So I think that's a critical system, if you will, in terms of decision-making that we as leaders have to be tapped into. I think the other thing too is we have to have a methodology in place that we've taken the time to actually have our salespeople understand. And, for us, we're big believers in the pain solution selling, this fact that, operational leaders, they don't switch vendors unless there's a meaningful amount of money to be saved or they got a problem they're trying to fix.
Yep.
And so in that case, no amount of candy and smiles, donut drops, baseball tickets, and bourbon is going to get a customer to switch from XYZ restoration to us.
Yeah.
Unless we effectively address a problem or we offer them a more meaningful, pricing. And I don't think any of us listening to this want to get into the pricing game and competing at that level, right?
Yeah.
No. And so I think, well, you may say that's not a system, but it is, right? It is. It's how are we approaching our market? What are the kinds of conversations we're having? And you need to have a consistent methodology that the team's applying. Otherwise, you got high flyers that are doing this approach and you've got this, person that's doing this approach. It's very difficult to troubleshoot.
Yes.
Why are we not winning and growing as fast as we want? Whereas if we have a methodology we deploy with every single rep, well, then we can troubleshoot, okay, here's the standard. Where are we at right now? And where do we need to do some skill building and course correction, Yeah,
I think that's really important. That piece right there is you can't problem solve if there's not a starting method.
Yeah.
And that's what most of us are doing is we've got tribal knowledge that we're still trying to leverage to get the job done. And the problem is now I'm 4, 5, 6, 10, 20 hires deep from the owner's original methodology. We don't even talk about the methodology anymore. It's broken down and become some kind of weird on the job, osmosis hope. And then we try to solve an inconsistency in our service offering. And it's like, well, what are you even judging it against? You know what I mean? And so
what's the baseline?
Yeah, I just affirm that.
I got one other practical tip just around systems. We literally just onboarded like 3 days ago a new software tool that we're utilizing with the sales team. It's called Rilla, Rilla. and I'm already a fan. Like I just saw our very first Rilla meeting come through onto my administrative dashboard, and my smile went from ear to ear. What Rilla is, it solves for a universal age-old problem with sales management, and that is, if I go, and some people may have seen my article in C&R Magazine a couple of weeks ago on this, the problem with ride-alongs, right? Well, like, what is the most common sales management approach? It's going on appointments with your salespeople, watching them, giving them feedback in the car afterwards, all this kind of stuff, doing cold calls with them, et cetera, et cetera. Ride-alongs. The problem that I've experienced over and over again is that my sales rep doesn't act the same.
No.
When I'm there as the boss. And the customer does not act the same when the authority figure is present as well. And often, not always, some salespeople have more power and control just in their natural kind of who they are. But much of the time, the customer ends up diverting their attention towards the authority source, and it ends up engaging the boss. And so it's not that it's not helpful in any way. It's just it doesn't go a long way to actually developing that sales rep to function better and better on their own independently. And so Rilla, what it basically is, it's like those people that use Fathom or even Gemini, for their Google Meets and their Zoom meetings and stuff like that, Read.ai, there's all these different transcription platforms. Well, none of those have a field app associated with it for recording meetings in person. That's what Rilla is. Rilla is basically Fathom for the field. Their audio engineers have mastered the iPhone and Android microphone systems. And so they're able to create really clear recordings. When you set it up, like all the sales reps do their voice signature. They record a bunch of sample scripts and things like that so that Rilla can very easily distinguish between them. Literally, their phone need only be within 30 feet of the conversation happening.
Which is crazy.
And so companies like A1 Garage Door, it's really, really cool. So home service companies are now having their sales reps, their technicians responding to a bid for a garage door or siding or roofing or whatever. Just let them know, hey, I'm recording our conversation with my AI transcription tool. I can send you a summary after we're done today of our conversation. That way you don't have to take notes. Well, we're now doing the same exact thing with all of our commercial prospects. Every single meeting, our team is recording, and I, as their leader, I can sample these meetings and listen to not only what my sales rep is saying, but in some cases, even more importantly, what is the customer saying?
Yeah.
And so now I have the means to truly coach them on their in-person sort of behavior and their skill of, hey, next time, I loved how you asked a question, but next time try this question instead. See what happens. Let me know, right? Yeah. And I can really get tactical with the team. I'm just so stoked.
Super coaching.
I'm literally, after we're done here, I'm getting ready to listen and review my first Rilla, but it's so cool because it comes back and it's already got like a summary of what happened, summary of the key moments and stuff like that. And then I have the ability to listen to the full thing as well. So anyway, I just wanted to drop that little tidbit for teams looking for a solution.
Hopefully
like that.
They're going to give you some ad spend on that.
Yeah. Shout out Rilla. And you know what? I want to recall something too that, Chris, I completely like my ADD and the million browser tabs that are open in my brain right now. I said, Mocha Master, huh? I'm a Mocha Master man myself. And I think that is a coffee making game changer. Simple, sleek, and made out of metal. Shout out Mocha Master. We're looking for sponsorships too. If anybody out there knows Mocha Master, have them holler at me, or Rilla. Rilla sounds like a really cool tool. I think that's amazing because one of the things that I really enjoy, Chris, about watching you and Brandon live, but specifically something that was at I want to say it was one of the core sales and marketing summits that we did that I was speaking at, and I sat into your thing. And I mean, most of this stuff and a lot of things in life, the solutions are just so simple and right in front of your face. And it's really cool that you guys bring those up. And one in particular regarding the commercial side was finding that pain point, and just asking the right questions. I'm so used to vendors. I mean, they call me every day, stop in here, drop cards off, and it's annoying. I've got our office manager's really good at deflecting. I mean, pro offensive lineman, not in stature, but in the protection aspect.
Yeah.
So I think that, a lot of times that we miss the simple stuff because we're trying to overcomplicate something. And so that lend to the commercial aspect of that and those simple solutions. So guys, we spent a little over an hour now. I have like 150 other questions, but I think I'm going to save some of this stuff for a future episode. I mean, you guys are always gracious with your time and coming on here, but I kind of want to wrap this up a little bit and get a couple key takeaways from you guys. At the end of the day, why I do what I do, why I write my book and have the podcast, and even my digital marketing agency, the genesis was to help people, right? And so if listeners today are listening to this, struggling in some aspect, I want to hear, let's change it up. What's one bold action a leader, a business owner, even if it translates to project management or a manager in a restoration company can take towards building that legacy company? What should it be?
Oh man, it's simple, dude. You need to reach out to a relationship outside of your organization and ask for help, support, mentorship, or partnership.
Awesome.
It's absolutely one of the most important things any of us can do when we've identified that there is some strengths or strategies in the business that we're not great at, and you see the writing on the wall that it's required. Just choke up, get rid of the ego, put your hand up, because all of us are experimenting it. All of us want to know we're not alone. And all of us can use someone with an outside perspective that's not emotionally connected to what we're trying to do to give us some advice, some accountability, to be a good sounding board, let you get the stuff out of your head and get it out in the open, because 99% of the time, most of it's either bullshit or nowhere near as crazy as you're making it feel like in your head. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, just fundamentally, dude. And that was one of the first steps I took when I took on this role with FP. And I'm just really honored to have some great men in my sphere that are willing to spend some time with me to do just that. So
yeah, I think to just lend to that, I think one of the most dangerous things we can say as business owners is, I've got this.
Oh, man.
When a problem arises, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There's just something beautiful that happens when you raise your hand and you're transparent about where the issue struggles or conflicts are. Because, man, it's just like almost immediately post those conversations, you're heard, you understand you're not alone. And that thing's just not quite as dark as you made it out to be. It's just it's unbelievably powerful.
Yeah, I don't know that I have anything better to add. I think I just go back to some earlier comments about sort of this ideal leadership profile, creating stability, calm, self-control. I just more and more, man, the leaders that I really admire, there is clearly health within their personal and family relationships. And I think that just general sense of health in those key relationships in their life, it shows up in their work and how they lead and how they treat their employees and everything else. So it's just something I'm really hyper oriented around at this kind of middle age sort of season of life that I'm in. Again, I mean, look back on that panel last week. Each one in their own way kind of exemplified that. Yeah. So that's something I'm sort of honed in on for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. I appreciate that. I guess that's the difference between healthy scaling and chaotic scaling, right? Is just having these key things. So guys, listen, I appreciate your time as usual. I know that whoever's listening to this is going to get a ton out of this episode. I think that every time we get together, we end up like becoming philosophers a little bit more. I think my mindset when I was putting this together was going to be a lot of practical stuff and giving some people some advice on how to build legacy businesses. And we did just that, but just not in the way that I initially thought. And I really appreciate the conversation. I think that I got a lot out of it. It was great to be able to bounce some ideas, become a little vulnerable as business owners with ourselves. So guys, I'm really looking forward to the next time. I want you to share with the audience how we get in touch with you guys. If anybody's out there that's looking for some real world coaching, consulting, and with head, heart, and boots, if they haven't come across it, if they're living under a rock, I guess would be the best way to say. How do we get everybody get in touch with you guys?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well, just go to floodlightgrp.com for both fractional sales management and working with one of our ops partners to grow and scale your business, hone your profits in. And then I think at FP, do we want to say we're actually hiring for somebody right now?
Yeah, we are. I want to be careful going that in that zone. But I guess maybe if you're trying to move to Florida, talk to us. We can potentially help you get to the sunny state. But as far as HHB, Spotify, Apple, iTunes, if you just look up Head, Heart, Boots podcast, we we love the show. You can see the logo behind us. It is definitely a passion project for us, and we like just doing what we're doing right now, just mixing it up, talking shop, being real about what's working and what's not. So come join us and listen up. Be rad.
Yeah, it's a great podcast, guys. Floodlight Group, great group of guys. Every single person I've ever dealt with over there has been amazing. By the way, your logo is awesome. I told you that before. You guys had a little rebrand. It kind of reminds me of the old Agnostic Front T-shirt or album cover there with the a little underground punk call out to shout out to Agnostic Front too. They're still kicking around. If you guys are looking for sponsorship opportunities, give me a shout. I love your music. I've been listening to you for 25 years plus. But no, great guys. I really appreciate your time on the episode. Anything else you guys want to share before we wrap up today?
That's it, man. Thanks as always, brother. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you next time.
Later.